looking from the inside out how this community doesn't see what I'm seeing. Like, they don't know what's going on back here, how the show is being led, how it's being influenced, how they're being influenced. But I'm seeing it. Different letter agencies, their counterintelligence and intelligence manuals about infiltration, and they do have a whole manual about going into these groups and your conduct within the groups, and you reporting back what groups you're being into, and how you conduct yourself. They do love conventions. They will put themselves into conventions to try to infiltrate scientists, physicists, people like that, even to control what it is they even say. They're weaponizing these platforms. They're weaponizing these small podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, blog sites. They are weaponizing them and using them for an agenda.
Hello, conspiracy players. Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy Playtime. On today's episode, we have one of the few returning guests of the show. I think she's number 2 or 3. You might be only 2, actually. Either way, very few people come on and feel that they need to come back on. So I'm very grateful that Brandy has chose to do so. And she has recently put together a Twitter thread all about the infiltration of certain communities and networks that we're all very familiar with. Could even be that you know one or you talk with one and you don't even know it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to Brandy. And if you want to just start by talking about how you came onto this and what led you down the rabbit hole, and then take it away.
Well, what had me looking at it was, I was a part of a podcast community, and I got to see some of the behind the scenes dealings, being involved with it. And noticing that actually there was 2 members that were in our group. One of them worked directly with the DOE. The other one, she went by an alias, and come to find out her husband is TSA, or I think he was NSA, but nobody would have known.
One of the SAs.
Yes, one of the. It doesn't even matter which one. That's all you had to say. It's a letter agency. And so seeing how that was coming together, and how I'm looking from the inside out, how this community doesn't see what I'm seeing. Like, they don't know what's going on back here, how the show is being led, how it's being influenced, how they're being influenced. But I'm seeing it. And I had already suspected stuff like this just with YouTube in general, because we've all seen, these YouTube put together groups where you got 5 or 6 people. They live in this huge house that has 0 furniture, but they are just bankrolling with the views. Like with TikTok, they'll have funded groups that they bring together just for views, and they put them up in a house, and they do their little TikTok thing, and they pay them, but they switch them out. Just like YouTube was doing the same thing. But then you have other YouTubers who are pretty big, and you see them throwing out different topics here and there. Like PewDiePie came out and he had to say something about flat Earth. It's like, did he really have an opinion about it? Or was he just trying to skew it because that was a topic at the time.
And so
And then,
PewDiePie is a very famous gamer. That's the guy you're talking about.
yeah, him.
He got into some hot water for doing some like Nazi jokes. That's how I know who he is. I didn't never know that he talked about flat Earth, so I just want to
Yeah,
clarify that.
I had never seen him, and then somebody had brought that up because I've been in some of the flat Earth groups in Telegram, and I was like, that's a weird, not unless he just in passing, but it just seemed like he really had something to say about that. But just him saying that, and as big as he is, influences these people who follow him. So they may have changed their mind just because of that. Then you had Jacksepticeye, like it was last summer, I think he came out with his whole white guilt. He's so privileged that he can post stuff on YouTube that he notices other people can't. And it's like, but did you really notice that? Or are you just, wanting to fall into that trap?
So who's this guy?
Jacksepticeye,
Yeah.
gamer. He's a
He's
big
another
gamer.
gamer. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Another
that's
gamer.
that right off the bat you've mentioned two. So that seems to be a pretty influential group of people if they're going after that.
Yes, they are. They're big. Like Jacksepticeye's been in movies. He was in a movie recently. God, I have to look it up. But so we know with the larger podcasters, we've already had that skepticism of who is controlling the strings because they push a lot of product. So they do have an incentivized reason for bringing certain things up, or even an incentivized reason for bringing people on.
Now, are you
But
talking about people who push like certain supplements and alternative health products?
yes. So that they're getting a kickback.
Use your imagination, folks.
So we knew about that, but we never really look at our own back door and think that the person that we're watching that maybe doesn't even have 5,000, 30,000, 15,000, we don't think they could possibly be in the same game. However, contrary to that thought, that's exactly the market that is being targeted because you wouldn't think or suspect that, and your guard is down and you're pretty much trapped in it. And so by the time you figure it out, you may never have figured it out, or it's a hindsight situation that you were like, wow, I used to listen to that and I believed all of that, and I would have never thought that they were being coerced or incentivized in some way to lead me down the wrong way or to lead you down a narrative.
Okay, so very recent from when we were recording this. Recently, there was a pretty big schism in the mainstream with Tucker Carlson and Fox News. And what I'm seeing with that is there's a divide in the quote unquote conspiracy community. Like Odd Man Out likes to say it's hardly worth calling a community when it's just a bunch of people fighting. But besides the point, anyway, we see a lot of people talking about how Tucker has turned over a new leaf. This is the guy who is infamously quoted as saying that if you are a 9/11 truther, you should be deported. And one of the first things he does when he gets fired by Fox, and we still don't know exactly what happened there. I think it might be a manufactured event. I think a lot of the stuff that he was reporting on with the January 6th has way more to do with it than the Dominion stuff, whether it's manufactured or not. But anyway, one of the first things he did was go and talk to somebody, and I don't remember who it is now, but it doesn't really matter. And he's saying that why can't we ask questions about Building 7? What's wrong with asking questions about it? Well, you're the one who said we should be deported for that. So anyway, you see a lot of people that are just like, without any explanation, he's kind of hopping. I mean, this guy, his dad definitely is a master propagandist, had CIA ties, if not just an agent himself. I think that's up for debate. But this guy starts off on MSNBC's Besties with Rachel Maddow, goes over to CNN, does that Crossfire show where Jon Stewart calls him out, Then he slides into Bill O'Reilly's slot on Fox News. And all of a sudden, this is the guy who will go unscripted as far as we're concerned. He's writing these monologues by himself. Before the show, he's talking about all sorts of things from the Kennedy assassination recently. You go back during COVID or even with the 2020 election. So now we have this guy who is a mainstream figure who's going to hop into the truthing community. And I always point out Russell Brand as well, being
Oh
one of
God, yeah.
these guys who was embedded into the Hollywood scene, married to Katy Perry, for Christ's sake. And now I think what's the guy's name? Noel Harari, the guy that's like Klaus Schwab's little minion. He's the guy that wrote Sapiens. Let me look up his name real quick
Yeah.
because I
Oh, but the Jacksepticeye movie was Free Guy.
the what now?
Free Guy.
Free Guy.
Yeah, that was the movie.
That's his movie?
He was in it, yeah, with
Ryan Reynolds?
Yep.
He's in the movie.
Yeah.
Who is he?
I didn't watch the movie.
But he's a character in there?
But also, he's also been featured in some games. He's been voices in games, so he makes pretty good money. So
All right, so Jack what?
Jacksepticeye. His real name is Sean.
He's an Irish YouTuber?
Yes, he is.
Okay. I don't really recognize him. I did see that movie. Oh, wait. It says an associated act, PewDiePie. So there you go. So yeah, it's the guy I was talking about is
Oh yes, that dude. He
so
looks like
this is the guy that's always at the Davos talking about transhumanism and hacking your brain.
so
And
bad. Every time I look at him, you know how, and I hate to bring bring up a cartoon, but on Venture Brothers, remember, like Dr. Venture had the tumor that was his brother, and he's like some deformed weird thing. That he reminds me of like a tumor that fell off of somebody because he just looks weird.
he fell off of Klaus.
Yeah, right out of his.
Klaus is Dr. Venture. This is his
That's
tumor brother. So Russell Brand is like what? One of the heroes of Rumble right now, and he's supposed to be spearheading a movement that we're all a part of. And look at him with this guy.
But
This
have
wasn't
you
that long ago.
Russell Brand's his icon, what he uses, his symbolism, the 33 with the crow. It's like, dude,
It's
we
on,
know.
it's on his show, the symbol.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point that out about Russell Brand, but my overall point was that people like Shepard Ambellis recently was talking about how Tucker and these guys, and I think he did mention Joe Rogan, that when they come over to these platforms that were for smaller names, that they're taking views from us. And I'm kind of divided on that. I'm on the fence about whether I think that that's true or not, whether if your audience is going to start watching Joe Rogan and just not watch you anymore, or whatever Tucker goes to, that's their fault. You can't blame. But I do want to get back to what you were saying about some of this stuff, because in your thread, you pulled up an article that Glenn Greenwald wrote back in 2010. Is it Sustain? The guy who wanted to, I mean, he kind of laid it out. I do believe it started with the Bush administration, and this fucker took it a step further. So do you want to talk about some of that?
Well, what a great step to take it the next step after you have Bush put an event in place that would have people questioning the purpose and intent of our government altogether. So you got Bush with the 9/11, and then in comes Obama with this guy, and all of a sudden they need to get ahead of the game on these these chat rooms, YouTube, podcasts, all of it. They're just like, hey, we need to get control of this internet. They're going crazy. They're having conventions now talking about what happened. And that is exactly where the truther thing came into play, was with 9/11. That directly came from 9/11. They had a truther convention. And that's when they tried to put it out there, just like conspiracy theorists, as a bad term. If you're a truther, that means that you are a total nut job conspiracy theorist. And that's what they wanted to package this as. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to control your speech. No, we're just going to make you look like a Looney Tunes character, like baby bumper you along the way so you can get so far. And we're like, let's steer him this way. Let's steer his audience that way. To where now they're just coming straight at you and saying, hey, why don't you work with us?
Yeah, and so the guy that was the kind of the architect of this under Obama, Cass Sunstein or Stein, I don't know how it's pronounced, but he was a professor at Harvard, and I do think in the article that was in your thread, it did mention something about him being a likely Supreme Court nominee under Obama at one point.
Yeah. But before he even went in there, he had already wrote up a paper, which I think he actually went to the same university as Obama. But yeah, he wrote a paper about conspiracy theories and how you would be able to go in and use different groups to infiltrate these communities in order to control and narrate and spin what it is these people are putting out. And then also, how you can corral them, because majorly way I see it is you have all these players and everybody has their piece of the truth, because, you've got characters and the characters have to have their role to play. So you give them their role, they're part of the truth, and you can herd their audience into certain echo chambers to where where they are at, so they can just keep more surveillance over us, period, because they can see where it is we're going and who it is we're watching and the terminology that we're using, so that it's easier to data mine it to see whether or not it's working. So like when Shepard says, they're taking away the views and such, I mean, mainly what they're doing is, because we watch multiple people, so, maybe they are taking some of the views. That obviously is, you're going to have that as soon as they come on, that gravitation over there to them. But it's easier to track the information when you have a big person like that over there. And it's easier too for you to get keywords out there. And my thing is, when these people are going through like these letter agencies, governments and stuff, you just let an algorithm go and bring it back to you, the information. So like when I was looking up some of these infiltrations into the truther community and stuff like that, Snowden kept coming up a lot. And I was like, they're saturating the system to where that's what you get. If you look this up, you're going to get a bunch of Snowden stuff. So that let me know right there, that's a flag on the play. Everything he has been saying and said was put in place to purposely saturate the search results so that you can't get to where you want to go without bumping into him all the time.
Well, and don't you feel like from day one, he was very suspicious of his suspicious character? And to get back to somebody we're going to be talking about a lot today, I think, I don't know how the fuck anybody can believe that this is one of the most wanted men in America, yet he's doing a podcast from Russia with Joe Rogan, walking around out in the open. Unless that's supposed to be seen, that ain't fucking happening. That's where I stand on that one. And I, at the time, already thought that Snowden was likely a CIA plant. I mean, he was a fuck. You don't even need to dig far because their cover story is that he was a private contractor for the CIA and just smuggled this information out in a Rubik's Cube. And then Oliver Stone makes the movie about him not very long after it happened. It was almost like David Fincher making The Social Network to tell us the official story of Facebook getting started. It wasn't a DARPA project. It was this kid who wanted to get laid in college, but he was a nerd.
Well, guess what's interesting even about the whole Oliver Stone?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Well, no, you got his son, Sean, who is now, where's he? In the truth community.
Sean Stone?
Yeah.
That's his name?
Yeah, I think his name is Sean. But yes.
I've never fucking heard of his son. That's weird.
Oh, yeah.
I knew he had one because he's in some of his movies. He played Jim Morrison as a boy in the Doors movie. That very opening scene. I think he's been in others too.
So yeah, he's in the conspiracy community.
See, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Does he have a podcast? God damn it.
Well, I know that he goes on other people's podcasts.
He's probably been on Joe Rogan's podcast, like Clint Eastwood's son.
He was he's definitely been in communication with that one little community I was in.
Did you talk to him directly?
No, I didn't. No, I got a healthy skepticism. I can't hide my poker face. I'm just like, I mean, he does have the face. He's cute, but lies are ugly no matter what face it's coming out of.
All right. So people look into Oliver Stone's son. I know I'm going to. So let's get back to you started talking about Snowden and then I cut you off.
Oh, yeah. Like the big players. So this is a good way to, which obviously too, this is something that pissed off Cliff High with the whole blue chicken cult. Cause he was scrubbing the internet to get information for his Alta reports.
Do you want to just give, because I don't know if a lot of people will know that, do you want to just give a brief overview of him and the blue chicken cult?
So Cliff High was doing Alta reports, which were scrubbing the internet for keywords. He was using an algorithm to predict certain outcomes, and it was for business mainly, just to try to find out what direction businesses were heading in. And he started getting a saturation of this blue chicken stuff. And it totally just, it screwed up his algorithms. So he was like, somebody's messing with the SEOs. And, if you do that, that's criminal in itself, that you are purposely skewing SEO results, these keyword results, which got him into actually a legal debate with Corey Good, and Corey Good tried to sue him for defamation. He lost because, it is a blue chicken cult and he was a liar. So that is pretty much how it's going to be when you put out these big players. Like right now, if you go to search, you're going to get, Fox did this. And Fox, you are already being saturated with everywhere that Tucker's going just because he left. So if they're going to use him as the next, conspiracy theorist gone crazy, but he's saturating the search results. He's skewing your search results for certain keywords.
And you and I were talking before we started recording about how DuckDuckGo, there's really not a hell of a lot of difference between doing a search on DuckDuckGo and Google anymore. I've done them back side by side, and it used to be night and day. And it is speculated on that it's either direct or indirectly that Google may be in control of DuckDuckGo. I don't know that. I've heard it said. I can't find it. But it's just like Disney. All the companies that Disney owns, there's not a paper trail. They own everything. So they're one of like 6 conglomerations that own everything.
Yeah, shell companies. Just funneling money through shell companies. And like even when I do my searches, it's like I use DuckDuckGo, I use Brave, and then I also use.
Is Brave one you recognize, or is Brave one you recommend?
I just do it to get a variety of stuff.
What was the last one you said?
Yandex.
Yandex.
It's supposed to be like a Russian search engine, but you kind of still get the same shit. So go figure. I have came across restricted sites where it's like restricted in my areas where they're not, you have to have a VPN in order to look at certain papers, which I thought was really interesting for the particular search I did. I might get one or two, maybe three differences on Brave from DuckDuckGo, but it's not so much of a difference that is going to make me choose one over the other.
I want to ask you something because you did have two, and we'll get back to the chronology that you have set up with this thing. But you do have two different articles written by Greenwald in here. And I think one of them is The Intercept, the second one. And which is, for people who don't know, it's a company that he co-founded that ended up driving him out. It was a independent news organization that he and other people, there's journalists who have gone on, like Ryan Grimm, who did have a falling out with Greenwald. But I know people that I respect, such as Monica Perez. Do you know who she is?
Mm-hmm.
So she has very, I don't know how to word it. She's very skeptical of whether Greenwald's legit or not. She thinks he might be one of these people we're talking about in the actual media sphere. Have you ever had any reason to think that?
I've just heard it. And I hate to put everybody in that box, but I think it's just healthy enough to go ahead and say that somehow,
until proven otherwise.
Yeah, until proven otherwise. You were guilty until proven otherwise. But, that's the whole thing, is to know the difference or to make your discernment of the information that they give you, because they do have to give you some truth, because you're not going to believe them otherwise if they just flat out lie, even though the government altogether. But anyway, even for you to believe any of it, they have to have some truth, some verifiable truth mixed in with the horse shit. So you got to sift through it. That's just,
and the more truth, the better.
Yeah, I mean, that's our job at this point. Yeah, they're going to come out saying all this truth, and then they're going to start dropping in, the barriers, the baby.
Well, I don't see people like Greenwald or Whitney Webb writing for the Twitter files and shit like that. Like when you look at Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, I think there was one other one that we all know is a shill, and that's Bari Weiss. But I've been a fan of Taibbi in the past. I think that some of his work with Rolling Stone in the old days was good, and I think that he's written some good books. He's like infiltrated cults and stuff. He's kind of, and he's argued this point when people bring it up, but he's almost like a neo Hunter S. Thompson. And we all know what that guy was into. So I don't know. But I saw that they're now like saying that the fucking government's coming after him, threatening to arrest him for perjury and shit like that. And it just seems so fucking manufactured to me. And he's had a parting of ways with Elon as well after the Twitter files. So, I mean, I like where you're coming from with the conspiracy, the truther movements being infiltrated, but also the mainstream media was the one where I first noticed it. So these guys on the fringes.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all knew that was going on. So you've taken it a step further. Now, if you've, I'm going to stop my rambling and just let you go back to wherever you were in the thread. And I will put a link to the thread also for listeners.
Well, I was just making the comparison because, yeah, I mean, where we stand, we already know, okay, the MSN, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. But for them, like, they already had to do that solution to their problem. They see that the numbers are falling. They see that we're not buying the bullshit. We see that all these companies are owned by the same people, and they're the same people that they know good and well we don't trust. So it is the whole, macro, micro, as above, so below. So they had to go a little bit deeper. Okay, they're not listening to the mainstream. They're listening to the alternative community now. So they had to move their interest over to the alternative community and find a way to inject the narratives and the spins that they needed to keep everybody under control and to monitor and their surveillance, they needed to go into that community, because before the internet, it was pretty much you would meet somewhere, you would meet at a lodge or a coffee house, and they would they would have people there, but it's pretty obvious when you see somebody, that looks strange now the way, you could tell. But on the internet, you don't know who it is you're really talking to. So it's not too hard for them to come in and, say that they're anybody. But they could be anybody. They can give you, they're getting paid to have this whole extra life. So I wanted to see, like, is it more, how many people really is it? What is this game plan? Like, how deep does it really go? How many agencies? Because I know that everybody wants to say it's FBI and the CIA, but it's beyond that. It's any letter agency altogether, and everybody.
Which there's 18 of them at this point that we know about.
Man, everywhere.
That we know about.
Right. And you got some subgroups, and it's ridiculous. And nobody ever, what astonishes me is nobody ever associates the DOE with coming in and having their own agenda. And it's like, that the DOE has like this much to do with energy. If you go into what they really have to do with, you need to start questioning who has some real power here, because they are flying way under the radar of the stuff that they're into. So definitely, if you want some shock and awe, go find out what the DOE is doing.
Will you give us some examples?
Well, they have their own colliders, so they're
like
working.
CERN.
Yes, and they are connected to CERN directly.
But CERN's the one that we know about. You're saying there's other ones that we'll never.
There's a lot of colliders. There's a lot of hadron colliders everywhere. A lot of them. They are also researching different diseases, viruses, medications, even into go ahead and go to the UFO stuff. They're in there too.
Now, with like people's like Bob Lazar and all those, do they have any DOE ties? Do you know?
I think he did. I think that he did. I think that one of the facilities had to go through one of the
but I know that when he's going on Joe Rogan and talking about the college that he went to and how there's no paper trail for that. That was I always thought that was a little bit of a smoke screen. I mean, the guy himself is a giant smoke screen, but they wanted you to look over there. So I'm just going to Google Lazar with DOE and see what comes up.
Well, even when I started looking into this, which I'm glad I got sent over to this video. I want to make sure of who it was. They brought up some. It was directly infiltration into the truther community. That is exactly how they brought it up.
And if you want to show videos, feel free. I do have the screen share open for you.
Off Planet Radio. That's who I found, who was talking directly on the subject of the infiltration into the alt media. And he named it Public Service Broadcast, Alt Media Circus.
I've got it.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, from 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago. And in there, he brings up a bunch of people that I was just like, wow, because some of those people, again, is associated now with the community that I was in. I was like, if there's not any more, we just keep getting better. But he brought up Michael Salla and the American University, and that being the CIA playground, and how, he pretty much came out of that. And they put him in place to prop up Corey Goode. And even after this whole Corey Good thing came out. Michael Salla was still propping up the whole blue chicken thing and this whole blue alien narrative. And involved with Gaia, and we know that Gaia was a big old shit show. And it looped into Gaia and their CEO, I think it was the CEO, being Mossad. And Jay Widener had some stuff to say about it as well. And he put it in that show there, the email. He read the emails back and forth to him. It also brought in Drumvalo, Melchizedek, having to do with some demonic rituals and also having to do with Dan Winter and some demonic ritual stuff. So it's like, what is really going on with these people here? These are all people that are still around, that people still watch, and yet their whole premise is based on whatever the government told them that they needed to put out to lead the people in a different direction.
Okay, so this video that Brandy's talking about, the channel is Randy. How do you say his last name? Randy Maugan?
Yeah.
Say it.
I think it's Moggins.
So Randy Maugan's Off Planet Radio TV. That is the. I'll just put this in the show notes. It's almost a 3-hour long video. And you watched the whole thing?
I did twice.
I'll have to put it on tonight when I'm doing some cleaning after we get off here. So, Stephen Greer to me is one of these more household names when it comes to this kind of stuff you're talking about. And I just always was blown away when Joe Rogan had Demi Lovato on his podcast. This is somebody who flip-flops on gender identity and makes headline news. It's like CNN reports that Demi Lovato is switching back from non-binary to she, her pronouns. And then she goes on Joe Rogan and talks about how Stephen Greer took her out into the high desert and showed her how to meditate and summon UFOs.
So she was just for MK meds.
She is very much one of these people that obviously, if anybody knows about the Mickey Mouse Club and all that shit, I don't know. She was young when she was into Disney. So, and now she's summoning shit with Stephen Greer and talking about it on Joe Rogan.
Well, side note on the Stephen Greer. Now, I got this information from, they may or may not be telling the truth, but the information I got was that Stephen Greer is into little boy porn.
So he's one of these people that is a mouthpiece just because they have some dirt on him. If this person that you're talking about's information is correct. So, right. I mean, we could always go that route. And I do know that it is true oftentimes. What I noticed about Greer was early on, probably before 2010, somewhere in there, or maybe it was like more like 2012. I live in a kind of a blue, new agey spot of Oregon. And
state.
What's that?
The blue checkmark state.
Yeah. Well, it's the blue checkmark spot in red Southern Oregon, but it does have a lot of that woo-woo, pseudo-spiritual, not like real spiritual, but like good vibes only type people. And this girl that I have known for a while, she actually isn't even from here, but we were living in Southern Idaho at the same time, and I have like family connections with her. She moved here and she told me one night about Stephen Greer, and she watched one documentary, and I think it was his first big one, and it changed her life. She like became a different person because of this. It seemed like to me that she was willing to put all her belief into what this documentary said. And I never watched it, but I know it's like the one with the little mini alien guy. Do you know about that one?
I think I've watched both of them where I think one of them he even put on his crying face that he started crying on.
Yeah, he's like the Jordan Peterson of UFO guys.
But yeah.
He's so moved by what the UFOs did to him. Do you want to say anything more about this Sunstein guy before we move on to the next piece of your thread? Because I know we're kind of bouncing all over the fucking place, but I did kind of want to just like go through the thread and have you pinpoint the things you want to talk about with it.
So, God, I want to call him. Yeah, I guess it is Sunstein. Sunstein.
Cass Sunstein or Sunstein. We could just call him Cass.
We'll always go back to that Berenstein. I'm telling you, the Berenstein Bears, whether they believe it or not, I know that's how I learned how to do the EI thing.
Yeah, I pronounced it the way that would have been. You never said Bernstein as a kid. And that, like, for me, Mandela is mostly silly and misrememberings when it comes to shit like Fruit Loops and all that stuff. But the Bernstein Bears, I know I'm in the crowd that people make fun of, but it's a certainty for me. It's just a flat out fucking certainty.
That's how I figured out. That's how I learned that if the E comes first, then it's Berenstein. If the I comes first, then it's Berenstein. That's how I learned.
But it's in this reality, it's not even either of those. It's AIN. It's like, so I bet you're saying that's like where you learned to E before I.
Right. So when I see it, that's my trigger to go back to them. It's like,
well, my brother told me about this shit a long time ago, and like I had never heard of the Mandela effect. This was like 2015, and I just thought it was silly. And then he said the Bernstein Bears thing, and I texted my sister in the middle of the night because she has kids. She got all her old books from when we were kids. I made her take a fucking picture and send it to me, and when it came through AIN, I had to sit down. I felt like nothing's real in that moment. It's just like, what the fuck?
No, uncle.
Those are the books we read. It's the very copy that we read.
Yeah. He said, bullshit. It has never been no AI. He was like, I know those books. And
Your uncle?
He's older. And he was like, bullshit. Yeah. I'm like, no.
All right. So maybe we should call this guy Cass Sunstain.
Sunstain. That sounds bad.
You got a little sun stain on your underwear there, kid.
Ew.
You need to wipe better.
Obama administration.
This is somebody until your thread I had never heard of. And I mean, I used to follow Greenwald pretty well, but this is a 2010 article. This is like halfway into Obama's first administration. So this is old.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote this as a paper in college. You know, his
Greenwald?
No.
Oh.
This was his like master thesis.
The conspiracy theorist stuff.
Okay. Yeah, social science research network. I mean, so that'll let you know right there. Social science. I mean, that's just more of how can we construe stuff to.
I hear social science and just go to engineering in my head.
It is. But he wrote that paper, conspiracy theories. And in that paper, he directly says that conspiracy theorists are not likely to be persuaded by an attempt to dispel their theories. They may even characterize that attempt as further proof of the conspiracy. Those who hold conspiracy theories typically suffer from a crippled, PZ, whatever. I forgot. Etymology, whatever. So they had already put in place to associate conspiracy theorists with them having a distorted sense of perception and reality. And then when you present them with something else, then, we're just going to put up a front and say, well, that's even further proof that you're lying. So they had already had this in play to put this spin on it, to make it a bad term.
Well, I want to interject into this because I think this is probably from that same paper you're talking about, the Sunstain route. He had to have a caveat because he acknowledges that some conspiracy theories previously dismissed as insane and fringe have turned out to be entirely true. Examples would be the CIA with the LSD, MK Ultra stuff, the DOD basically doing 9/11 1.0 with Castro, which JFK ended up nixing, and that's he doesn't name it, but it's Operation Northwoods. And then he throws in the Nixon White House really did bug the DNC headquarters, like that fucking even fits into those others that he listed. So anyway, he's like even saying, even though some of the stuff that these guys believe did end up being true,
they're still idiots. Yeah, so you got some truth, but then you got to put the spin on the truth. Like, but we're going to go this way because they can be just radical. So you got him. God, such theories typically spread as a result of identifiable cognitive blunders operating in conjunction with informal and reputable influences.
Cognitive blunders. Nice.
Yes. But he did have to put in operating in conjunction with informal, which would be alternatives, but also reputational influences. Now, who is a reputational influence? I don't know. The people that used to be so-called journalists, but their research got them in trouble, and that threw them into the alternate community. So they definitely know where this is going.
So do you think that that's always the case? That when these people do go from, I mean, like we were, a glaring example is Tucker Carlson, who we already talked about. So do you think, and this is, I'm just asking your opinion, that there is authentic people who were in the machine and said, fuck this? Or do you think they just get rid of people like that? And the ones that we do think got out and now are spouting true things? Do you think is any examples that are authentic?
It just seems like the ones that end up as real examples, you just don't even hear. They like go into obscurity. They end up with a blog somewhere, or they write a book, and you just don't ever hear from them again. I mean, did he lose any money in this deal? It makes it seem like he did, but did he? Is
Carlson?
He? Yeah.
Any money he lost is going to be gained in fucking tenfold for whatever he does next.
Right. I mean, and just the term being ejected altogether is questionable. So
we've been calling it for a year on disinformation. Like, I see people that I respect going, I can't believe this happened. It's like, I can't believe it didn't fucking happen sooner. They waited until the golden opportunity arose. And that is right now, the timing of it. The same day as a little like tip of the hat, they also fucking fired Don Lemon at CNN. Yeah. I think because they wanted people like Dave Smith to say, there's nobody at Fox News who can do what Tucker's doing. Don Lemon is replaceable. And it's like, I remember when Bill O'Reilly left and people were saying he wasn't replaceable. And they put Tucker Carlson in there. My prediction is Tulsi Gabbard is the next Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I called it when she went over there and started filling in for him. And talk about somebody else who got their fucking like how she was well known because she stood with Bernie Sanders after the DNC fucked him in 2016. But she wasn't a household name until she went on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Exactly. Now, just him bringing her on means she's affiliated somehow, somewhere into that network altogether.
All right. Sorry to get off track, but again, I think you were just talking about
legs. It really has, though. There's no escaping it.
What escaping what?
There's no escaping it. That's how many legs this operation has, and it just. Even down to us, it's down to us. Don't think anybody is too small not to be approached and tainted by these people.
So let's talk about Joe Rogan just a little bit, because I think most of us who have listened to his podcast in the path, most of us who have listened to his podcast in the past remember a day. And I wasn't this early on. I kind of came on before he blew up huge. But back in the day, he was doing this thing in his house when he was just the guy that was on news radio. And then he had the Man Show, and Fear Factor in the UFC kind of made him a name. But do you think that they saw this podcast growing and then grabbed him, or do you think that it was from the very beginning that this was not grassroots ever?
It was, yeah, it was never because he was already in with the same people.
UFC to me is the one where it's like he already has, like, I'm putting this in quotes, alt-right affiliates and a fan base from just the UFC alone.
Well, just in his career to be an actor, he was already introduced to all this
But
stuff.
he
It's
never was a big name as an actor.
no,
He was a TV personality, I would say, that did start out acting. A lot of people don't even that watch news radio don't know Joe Rogan was in that show because he had such a small role. And what
I
was he in the show?
love,
Joe Rogan was named to Joe, and he was a conspiracy theorist.
yeah, I love that show though. That was a good
It's
show.
dude, Phil Hartman, uh, everybody in that show. Yeah, no exceptions except for Joe.
But that's exact. I mean, he was for him to even act like he is dumb to anything that goes on is a slap in the face to anybody who listens. Because
Well, I have a memory, and when I remember less than 10 years ago, Joe Rogan is talking about how the moon landing is bullshit because he did a conspiracy show on the Sci-Fi Network. He knows that Bigfoot is bullshit because him and Duncan Trussell went out talking to Bigfoot connoisseurs and they didn't see any black people. It's even made its way into his comedy. But I remember how hardcore of a conspiracy theorist he was. The reason that I got onto him way before his podcast started was because I tried DMT in 2006 and I wanted to hear other people's experiences. And the only people I could hear talk about it outside of like the Terrence McKenna scene, which maybe Joe Rogan isn't, that might be further discussion. But I found a clip of Joe Rogan on Opie and Anthony from like 2004 or 5, maybe somewhere in there, of him talking about his DMT experience. And he described it. He talked about aliens and machine elves. And it's like the McKenna language too.
mhm.
So that's how I was. And I was like, wait a minute. I used to fucking get drunk at night when I was in college. And he was the second iteration of the Man Show. And I didn't watch news radio until it was already off air. But so the Man Show is where I first saw Joe Rogan. And then I hear this guy spouting off on DMT in a very articulate yet comedic way. It's Joe Rogan. And DMT is one of his favorite things to talk about. But he won't talk about conspiracy theories anymore unless it's, one of the approved ones.
Well, then you got him too, right? Saying the same language that the rest of them is saying, bringing on the same people in those known communities, and him also being involved with the Esalen Institute, which is, another offshoot of some MK Ultra experiments
And
on,
this is the one in Big Sur.
right, and using drugs as a form of mind control.
Well, Matthew North was the only, like, one of the only ones that I saw bring this up. And we all know Matthew North disappeared. And I had these thoughts on my own, and I'm sure many people did, but why can Joe Rogan openly eat
Yeah,
mushrooms and show himself eating? I mean, they don't even pan away. He'll take them out of the baggie, pass it around to his friends, and he still, now that he's in Texas, he still smoke. Texas doesn't have legal marijuana on any form. It's not rec there. It's not medicinal there. And Joe Rogan will openly smoke weed on his podcast. This guy's untouchable, and I am a psychedelic advocate on certain levels, but the way he pushes this and gets away with doing it, like, I would not eat mushrooms right now talking to you, and fucking a few hundred people are going to see this. Not a lot
yeah,
of people. So anyway, tangent there, but yeah. So talk the Esalen Institute. Like, yeah, I think that's where I cut in.
yeah. I mean, he associates with a lot of them, and who better to get drugs from? The people that are pushing it, and for all we know, I mean, they sponsor him, and like you said, Matthew North, when he brought that stuff up, he brought up the same thing that all of a sudden, you know, you got we already know Terrence was involved in the whole CIA, and let's go ahead and use these drugs and put this out there like it's supposed to be an organic experience, when really it's just, to get you back into a government experiment. Then you got his brother now coming on,
Going on
and
to Joe Rogan.
and all of a sudden, one of his sponsors is this company that comes from Esalen, and I think it was God, it's just, they deal in drugs, but yeah. So, and then, all of a sudden he's fine. He can do drugs whenever he wants with whoever he wants. So it seems to be government sponsored drugs.
And
it looks like.
I know that a lot of people tread lightly when they start talking about Matthew North and Jan Irvin and some implications about, was the torch passed from Tim Leary to Terrence McKenna to now several offshoots, and maybe Joe Rogan being one of those. And a young kid, 21 years old, starts talking about this on a man's platform who may very well be I'm just going about things that people have told me about Jan Irvin that I have not looked into it myself, but that he has infiltrated the movement, and he has this falling out with Joe Rogan early on. Joe Rogan interviewed this guy at his house. That's how early it was in the podcast. And Jan starts talking about MK Ultra. Joe Rogan cuts him off, tells him that he's being too matter of fact. This is just supposed to be a conversation, man. Come on, man. And Jan was pissed. Duncan Trussell has talked about it with Joe Rogan, about how he ran into him and they were about to go out into the desert for a festival. And I don't know, but it's a slippery subject, Matthew North, because we don't know what happens to him.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like I want to know, but it's just like.
I mean, enough people talk about it that I'm not afraid to talk about it, but is it a rabbit hole that we want to dive into?
I know. You're like, God.
I mean, part of me is like, well, yeah, that's the one you want to dive into. But the other part of me is like, I don't know, though.
Yeah, because why was it just him that disappeared? Because everybody he was really associating with seems to be doing just fine. So why him?
And did he? That's the other thing. I mean, how many layers deep is this? We're talking about like the guy that did write these articles, Glenn Greenwald. We don't know. I see. This is how deep it goes for me. Is when I fucking thought Snowden was controlled op. I heard Monica Perez say the same thing about Assange, and I'm like, you know what? That never even fucking occurred to me. It'd be like he would be the one example of like, yeah, see, when you're really enemy of the state, you don't walk around like Snowden doing a fucking live stream from a cell phone in Russia and live to tell about it. Assange, on the other hand, is being paraded around like Hannibal Lecter, but is that just a show? And it seems like the way you're enthusiastically nodding that you have something to say about that.
No, I've heard that exact same thing, that he is a, Snowden 2.0, being paraded around just to showboat it. Like,
hey, this is what happens when you show sensitive material.
Right. Exactly.
Which it was such a really good show because it's like a movie. This guy, they found his weak spot, which was women. These rape charges come up, which the rape charges stemmed from these women going in saying that he was fucking them both at the same time. He wasn't wearing a condom. They didn't want to press charges, but then all of a sudden he's holed up in an embassy. There's video of him skateboarding around, and then all of a sudden the unthinkable happens and they actually end up arresting him. And I don't think he'll ever set foot over here. They're trying to extradite him, supposedly. We just see videos of like lawyers talking about how bad a shape he's in and that he's being tortured to death pretty much.
Yeah, and random pictures, kind of like the whole, Ghislaine is in court, but we're getting a sketch Like, okay, well, is he really being held somewhere?
Well,
Is
and
he?
also when Ghislaine was in trial, everybody was fucking watching Johnny Depp and Amber Turd talk about all that stuff that was going on at the same time.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just they're all actors in this show to get us to believe one thing or another, just so that they can track the path that we're going to go because they laid that path out there.
Yep. All right, let's get back to your thread.
I know it's all related too, but
Yeah,
yes,
that's good. But I do want to
yeah,
have you go through it to the end, and like we will many times as we already have do some side path and talk about all sorts of other stuff. But I just think that sticking to your thread is the move because it's full of such good information and a lot of it.
it is. So part of their plan to to infiltrate into these alternative communities and to get them headed in the direction that is more trackable and more palatable to them was this was his plan to employ teams of covert agents and pseudo independent advocates. Pseudo independent, this would be these break off journalists that they're pseudo independent, Um, they advocate to cognitively infiltrate online groups and websites, as well as other activist groups, which advocate views that Sunstein deemed false conspiracy theories about the government. Now, I don't know how he's judging or what he deems as a false conspiracy theory, because that seems very subjective. I mean, so if he's working for Obama, then that would mean whatever Obama would deem a false conspiracy theory. But that right there in itself is a judgment call. So they're just leaving it open. They're not shutting it down to where if you say this, and this is what we consider it. No, they're leaving it way open, so they can call any of it a false conspiracy theory. So they didn't give themselves any control or any boundaries for what they would deem otherwise. And I have even looked online to different letter agencies, their counterintelligence and intelligence manuals about infiltration, and they do have a whole manual about going into these groups and your conduct within the groups and you reporting back what groups you're being into, and how you conduct yourself. They do love conventions. They will put themselves into conventions to try to infiltrate scientists, physicists, people like that, even to control what it is they even say.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, a lot of this just harkens back to COINTELPRO, the
yes,
FBI in the mid to late 60s with, the Weather Underground and Black Panther.
I think this is what it is directly. I mean, we want everybody likes to reference like MK Ultra is the big thing. MK Ultra is like the box that holds.
MK Ultra is such an umbrella. It's
Yeah,
just
there's
everything under the sun.
yes, there's so many subgroups in there. That's just a box. So they like to say, well, MK Ultra is, we don't do that anymore. Okay, so you repackage the shit, but it's still ongoing. You still have all these projects, and I think the COINTELPRO, same thing. They just they repackaged it, gave it a different spin, put it on different platforms because they're evolving the same way our information is evolving. And you just have to keep looking back at it to catch these patterns because it never stops. It just keeps going. It morphs. It's changing. It adapts. They are adapting to the direction we are going to, and they're trying to get ahead of it in order to steer us in those directions that they want us to go into, to stay away from their protected information, to stay away from their legacies, their monies, don't blow the cap off of what's really going on. So no matter which way we go, they're going to try to find some way, or they probably already are in it.
Well, and this question is surely going to throw us on another side tangent, but what do you think about the internet in general and DARPA's intent? I don't know. I think when the internet first came to be, it was just networking for military and intelligence, but to give it to us and to not expect it to become what it is today, to just think that it's just going to be, it's going to be used for commerce and, certain grids that will be running on this thing, but they never expected it to be full of chat rooms. I mean, those were the first features of the internet, was the chat rooms and stuff. So part of me wonders if DARPA's intentions with the internet was to just get us to come together in groups and then be able to infiltrate it easier.
Yeah, who created the chat rooms? They were already plugged right in.
Yeah, they were like, when I remember you got the CD in the mail and you put it in.
Exactly.
It was like, oh, welcome to Yahoo Chat or MSM, or AOL was the first one.
AOL. Right? You got it.
You got mail. Tom Hanks. Ooh.
Exactly. You got it for free in the mail. They gave it to you just to see what you would do with it. Yeah.
And I mean, the joke is that you had so many of them shipped to you that sometimes they were just using an AOL CD as a coaster. It was like they were relentless about it.
Right. It's kind of like
all you needed was a PC and a phone line, and most people in middle America had that. And when I say middle America, I mean like the middle class of America all had a phone line and a fucking PC at that point.
So they knew what it was going to be before they put it out there. And they probably did it the same way they always do it. It was military first, right? They used them as an example of where it could go and what it would do.
Well, and like, to name drop, Sam Tripoli always talks about how, yo, man, was the internet, it was like, it backfired. And now we're using it against them. And it's like, okay, I've never been one to think that the powers that be are incompetent. A lot of people make that mistake. They're very good at what they do. They've been honing their craft for generations, for decades. Before computers were even around, they were fucking with fucking magic and all that kind of shit. And they just had this, but I never assumed that the internet backfired and, oh, look, there's a resistance growing online. If that was the case, they would have pulled the plug years ago.
Yeah, and they can.
And they will.
Yeah, so no.
I mean, a lot of people are like, and I say this sometimes, like, they're going to give us an internet blackout, and then when it comes back, it's going to be like China's version of the internet where it's strictly regulated. And like, honestly, if what's it called? Starts with an R. Restrict Act. If the Restrict Act is gonna pass, this show won't exist anymore.
Well, you can't even the whole VPN thing.
I don't use VPNs, but I think that just having your own YouTube channel where you can talk about conspiracies freely isn't going to happen.
No, and to make it so bad, it's just like they're just pushing you back into, well, how it was even before the internet. They know it's not going to stop. This movement is not going to stop. The only thing that they can do is try to control it, because it's turning on the lights and all the rats scatter. So they turn off the internet and we find new mediums. And that's the same way before. So you're going to go back to writing books and then, having like community groups, meetups. It's just going to go back.
Yeah. They don't want to drive it underground and lose control of it. So that to me leads me to my original point with the Restrict Act is this happens every few years. You remember net neutrality and then the SOPA thing and now this, and they like get us so close to like, oh, you're going to lose the internet as you know it. And we don't. I think that might be their way of letting us think that there's this thing's going away. But why, when they have used it, like what you're talking about in this thread, when they've been able to very successfully control the opposition. Why would they let that go?
Yeah, they're not. It's fear porn. That's it. Like, oh, they're going to be so afraid. Like, it's a game. It's like, oh, watch them fret, watch them fret. We'll take it away. No, we won't. We'll take it away. So it's kind of like good cop, bad cop. It's a game, and it's a sick game, but that they're going to keep playing it.
All right, where were we before I interrupted again?
We can go to the part of the thread that I think everybody kind of already knew, like with the COVID thing, like we
Yeah,
knew
we got to talk about this though.
Yeah, we knew that the White House is bringing in these idiot little TikTok people. Just anything that they deemed like certain influencers that to cooperate with them in order to make sure you go get your death shot, make sure that you're wearing your diaper, stuff like that. Make sure you're not touching people. God forbid, don't go outside. So they were working with those people, but they obviously had to have a group that would go in and find these opportune people to disseminate that message for them.
So do you think these are mainly influencers that did make a name for themselves and then they saw that and went and paid them?
Actually, it was the opposite. They were looking for the opposite, which I found perfect in this situation where people are always thinking, oh, it's just the main big people. It's the big people that are infiltrated. It's not us. We can trust us, right? It's us. But that's not what they were looking for. They actually put in the one paper, which is a CNN, but they actually put, one of many nano influencers, which is a small group, a small channel, a small TikTok personality. They had them specifically, they said, working with the state of New Jersey to promote their public health practices to their followers on social media. And for the influencers, the content is paying off sometimes, literally. So they were paying them. Whether or not they agreed with it, it didn't matter. They were paying them, we'll give you X amount of dollars if you would please make these statements to your group. Not big influencers, nano, which is interesting that they throw that nano out there. But yeah, little, small, just small little groups. Then what I went off of that is they had brought up a specific company that goes out and looks for these people. And the actual owner of the company said just how are some of these influencers, podcasters, all these YouTubers, like how are they getting used like this? And it is an agency that promotes them. It's a California-based company, and I think it's called Zomad, that specializes in working with
And that's with an X?
Yes, nano influencers. They are an influencer marketing and research company. So, what came up right after that? Google. Google has their own version as well. And they have a matchmaking program to where people can come in and find these YouTubers that match their interests, that match their demographic, so that they can connect directly with them and work with them. So we're having matchmaking services. So now it even, you have people who are in these agencies who are coming in, and now you even have a whole market of people who are pimping you out to put out these messages that they want put out there. And I mean, with the Zomad, I mean, it's not even like somebody's promoting a toy or they're promoting their their wish list on like Amazon, where they're using these products. You can support me by buying these products. No, they're not even doing that. They are pushing a government agenda. They're working directly with the government to push agendas, to push vaccines, to push what they deem as healthcare. And the people that are talking about, they didn't even care if they had any authority or education, which that was their whole thing about misinformation, right? That you couldn't talk about it because you don't know about it. Well, you got Gates, and Gates is not
Hey,
a
as
doctor.
long as you're saying the things they want you to say, you could talk about it.
So this is so hypocritical, but obvious. So you have got these little, just like we've seen recently, you got the two little imbeciles pushing some Biden crap.
Harry Sisson and what's the other guy's name? Yeah.
Like, seriously, they do nothing. And just the same as these people that are like, oh, you should really
Well,
put on paper and get a vaccine.
yeah,
You
and like
don't know
they
what they are.
what's that?
They don't even know what they are. It's like, did you do any research? No. What do you usually do? Oh, I put on lipstick and people thinks it's pretty, but I
Yeah,
want to
but
promote.
Brandy, the science.
I,
Capital S.
it's theirs.
Yeah.
Weird science. The weird science. So I had pulled one particular quote from that guy, their CEO, because they
Whose CEO is this?
the Zomad
Okay.
asked, why do they like working with the nano influencers? And he said the social media content creators have follower counts in the low thousands, which is a lot. That is our community, low thousands. That's us. Large, well, you, not me. Larger than the average casual user. So, just kids posting them kicking a ball around, but still minuscule compared to celebrity influencers who have millions of followers. Their followers don't see them as hired guns. That's a crazy way to put stuff, but he put it out there. That's why we like them, because nobody sees them as a threat. And that's why they like them. So if that's why this company likes them, that's exactly why these agencies like them, because nobody sees them as a threat, but they are, because that's what he just says. Nobody sees them as a hired gun. That's a weapon. So they're telling you they are weaponizing this platform. They're weaponizing these platforms. They're weaponizing these small podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, blog sites. They are weaponizing them and using them for an agenda.
Well, it just gives me a good opportunity. I want to cut to a commercial break. Today's episode of Conspiracy Playtime is presented to you by Zomad. Think you know what you think? Think again, fucktards. Listen to your local influencer today. And I do find it funny that, like, I do remember during COVID, you would see some schmuck from TikTok in the feed. You open your browser, whether it's Firefox, Safari, and of course during COVID that was a crazy time to do that. But I would see some fucking idiot that nobody knows who this is right next to Arnold Schwarzenegger telling you how to wash your hands 58 times a day, and then there's this dumb bitch doing a dance about like getting your vaccine. And it's like, yeah, they do. It's the whole spectrum. I mean, there's a lot of middle ground there, but they got you on both ends. And I think it was Aldous Huxley that said you go for the middle 60 because 20% of the population is going to do as they're told no matter what. 20% of the population is going to tell you to get fucked no matter what you tell them to do. But that middle 60, that's a lot of people on the fence.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people to influence. It's a larger crowd.
And if you can influence the ones that are leaning towards the truther stuff, then you got them on both ends. Because I mean, I know a lot of people who, like, I'll start asking, we get into the conspiracy theory talk, and then you find out that, yeah, I love conspiracy theories. I love Alex Jones. I love Joe Rogan. I listen to Sam Tripoli sometimes when I want to get super crazy. And it's like, okay, you're a conspiracy theorist, just like you think. I mean,
Yeah. You
You want
think?
to talk about Alex Jones for a little bit? Because
Yeah, go ahead.
I, for me, this is my personal story. I was infatuated with him early on because I got to see him for the 8 years that W. Bush was in office, rail so fucking hard against him. And then it switched over to Obama. And the first thing before Obama's even inaugurated, he's got a documentary about him. And I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't have a side. I also, one of my fucking dead heroes is Bill Hicks. And I don't know if you know the rumor. I'm sure you do. What do you think about that?
They do look awfully alike.
Their
But I
voices too. If you like, if you put him in a, I don't know. I had a guy on my show, loved him. His name's John Gusty, and he was a guy in the music industry. And then like he's super fucking sold on thinking that Bill Hicks is Alex Jones.
that is
And
reality TV guilty pleasure thing is that like they have all these actors, they have one person playing like 50 different people. That's like my guilty pleasure because it's like
it's so fucking like spy game, you know?
it
It,
is.
and
But
I
super fucked. That would be
would you
super,
say that again?
that'd be super fucked to find out. It's just like there's only 20 people that's controlling it all, but they play like 500 different characters.
And now we're getting to the point where you'll be able to just AI generate all the actors.
Mm-hmm.
You won't even have to have like the super cool spies that know how to be like 12 different celebrities. But to go back to that notion, John Gusty, the guy that I just brought up, also said in his own career, he encountered people who were playing multiple people. And then in their day life, they don't look like he's like, and he used it as an example was the theory that Jimi Hendrix
Oh,
became Morgan Freeman. And then Alex Jones is Bill Hicks. But he said that whether or not you believe those ones, he said he wasn't sold necessarily on the Jimi Hendrix one, but he says that he's seen that with his very eyes and he wouldn't give me examples, but that almost makes it more intriguing
yeah.
because,
My God, just give me one. Just give me one so that you can start seeing it yourself. Because, you know, like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
well, what about Adam Lanza and David Hogg being the same actor?
Oh my God. But, you know, I just,
This one's not going on YouTube.
oh,
So fuck it. We just crossed the line. I don't care though.
man,
I'll put it on there, but I don't know if it's gonna stay up.
there's so many of them that look just the fuck alike.
I've
Like,
seen the breakdown of Adam and David's face. Either they're the same fucking person, or whoa, that's weird.
well, I seen one person make an explanation for it, saying that, you know, considering the place in which they come from, that they all are pretty much like a big orgy, and you know they could all seriously be
Yeah, but
related.
this is Connecticut and Florida. This is not the Parkland. That would make more sense to what
Well,
you're saying right now.
yeah, and then
I guess
I
rich fucks from Connecticut do a lot of vacationing in Florida, though.
could just be like, "Hey, swingers' house is open. Let's go migrate." Uh,
So, what do you think? Do you think that those two might be the same person?
I mean, there's so many on this. Like, they really could. Because why? Why do you look that much alike? Or I've also heard, you know, I mean, I don't go too much into there being actual clones. I think that's another keyword they like to put out to give us a, you know, like a here's your clone tag. So every time we say clone, they're like, oh, we got them in this group. I don't think that's really how they do it, but it's almost like they have produced these, you know, these babies where you just, you know, like that what was it, the octomom. Okay, so you can put 8 babies into this, you know, test tube, and we're going to manufacture these 8 babies and put them into different areas of like entertainment, government, music, but they all look very similar, you know, because they probably came from, you know, the same egg sac, but they're just, you know, different identical type of twins or fraternal twins. all that.
Well, you want to know one of my favorites?
Do it.
Shit. Shit. Okay, I found it. Now I just gotta share my screen, yeah. Oh shit. Damn it. It's like I haven't done this before. You know who this is?
Oh my God, yeah.
What the fuck?
I know, right? But you know what makes it so
This
bad?
is Zena LeVay, everybody, who is.
But look up where you got Joe Rogan with Anton.
You cut off again. Joe Rogan, what now?
Look up Joe Rogan with Anton.
Anton LaVey and Joe Rogan?
Yes. Hell.
Wait a
I mean,
minute.
what? Y'all, you've never seen that?
I didn't know that they like hung out.
Yes.
Okay, so you weren't saying that they're like cloned like Xena and Taylor Swift.
No, no, no. I was just saying,
Oh.
brought it up because you brought her up, and I was like, oh,
Well, look at this.
flip it back around.
I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me.
What, Stanton?
Oh, it's the grandson.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so his actual pictures are right here. This is really the original Anton.
Which makes it so bad because you know that the grandchild's going to look just like him. Because he already does.
Okay, so what are we saying here? I just want to hear you say it. Joe Rogan is what now in this theory?
He's in there with them.
No,
So
but
there's
is he like how is he tied to LeVay?
yeah, he was hanging out with him
So this is
there
Stanton
tonight.
LeVay. Okay. So
I
this is
mean,
the grandson right here on the right.
oh, that's funny. It even says satanic shill. He's no real truther.
Have you seen these videos that have popped up of his dad
Mm-mm.
talking about he's like crying and saying that the stuff that he said about him abusing his mom and shit isn't true, and that Joe Rogan's sister also has said that there's no way Joe Rogan could have witnessed any abuse. Just
Oh,
the timeline of it doesn't.
so is he trying to bring that out and tie it into this mental health crisis that they're going to try to push on us when we all know that is nothing more than their so-called machine elves, which is ELF, which is extremely low frequency weapons.
Say that again. What kind of
They
weapons?
extremely low frequency weapons. It's the waves that they're pumping out everywhere, which also goes back to the MK Ultra and the John C. Lilly and his Lilly waves, which were a mind control wave. So are they bringing out? Because guess who else promotes some mental health breaks? Is actually a Sam. There's a
Tripoli?
yeah, there's an app, and it's like, do you need your mental health? You can contact these and chat with a therapist.
Oh, BetterHelp?
Yes.
Yeah, they're one of the main podcast advertisers. It's like Blue Chew, BetterHelp.
Yeah, you can get real hard and then talk to somebody about it.
One of my favorite things that happened recently when I was listening to a certain podcast that we may have talked about 20 seconds ago was they're going off on sustainable living and off-grid life and farming. And then almost immediately after that, they jump into, and this is not an ad, this is an ad reading where Sam and the rest, a certain host and the rest of the guys are reading this ad for super convenient meal delivery after you just got done preaching sustainability. Chris,
Exactly.
Rantcast Chris, shout out, friend of the show. He made a comment about peanut butter vodka, or what was it, peanut butter whiskey. He's
Ew.
always talking about 12 steps, and then he goes into Chris clipped a video where Sam's giving this heartfelt, like, oh, recovery, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes into this, and then Chris clips the fucking ad for peanut butter vodka right next to that. I like vodka. You like vodka. All right, so look at this, and I'm not going to play very much of this, but this is Joe Rogan's dad.
Apparently Rogan's dad, sister, and some other guy, probably like like brother-in-law, technically. Like probably sister, husband.
Super weird. I don't know how we came across. Somebody tagged me in this on Twitter.
If you lied about your father, what do you give up the world? I'm tired of it, Joe. I just had enough. If you can't talk to me face to face, you're a punk ass. That's all you are. You got all the money, everything, but you know what you don't have?
What?
You don't have no heart, and I'm going to tell you something else you don't have. You ain't got two balls. You don't want to talk to your father because you couldn't handle me. 81 years old. You couldn't handle this guy right here. And when you said I beat up kids, I beat up other women, Joe Harrison was, when you farted in your house, they knew next door. How could I get away with that?
My real father was crazy. He was like a psychotic person. He beat the fuck out of my mother.
Like he would be the type of.
I gotta say, from the clip from Joe Rogan, after watching his dad speak, I believe him. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you don't even know what's going on. And then
to grow up with.
I think this is the sister.
yeah.
A big apology.
Joe, you were taken away at a very young age. Okay. Unfortunately, you did not get to grow up with the man that we were fortunate enough to grow up with.
Preschool teacher, social worker looking at.
Yo.
So these douchebags are obviously on his side.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I came across this when I was doing some Matthew North digging. Just
It is, and there's like whose parents really going to do that? You know, are you're going to go to TikTok for that shit? You're not going to.
well, it looked like the sister had probably orchestrated it.
Right, but then again, you have Joe in with the Esalen Institute, in with the MAPS group, who are using drugs to treat mental illness. So now he's going to put a highlight on this mental health crisis that, you know, obviously they're putting out there. Like, everybody's got a mental health crisis because, you know, you don't know if you're a fucking male, female piece of cake or a furry.
Piece of cake?
People can identify as cake.
I am red velvet. What are you? What kind of cake are you, Brandy?
Cheesecake.
Ooh, damn it. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we in the thread? Because fucking Joe Rogan keeps interrupting us.
I know, that fucker.
Oh, we were at I just did my Zomad ad read.
Oh, yes, you did.
So I think that's what we were talking about.
A great pill in itself. Oh, you know, you want to become an ultra YouTuber? Look at that. Awesome. Speaking of waves. Woo.
That was fucking weird. My light started flickering and it made this David Lynch noise in my headphones. I feel like I'm watching Twin Peaks right now.
Uh-oh, you're being targeted. No, lying. Just saying shit.
Havana syndrome.
Oh my God.
Strikes again.
God. You're going to get norovirus.
Oh no. People are going to know what we're talking about.
I don't either.
People on the inside.
Yeah. What are is? Oh my God. And another reference back to Matthew North, which I was going to post this today, but I didn't. The Temple of Set.
Oh, is that Aquino?
Yeah, like to achieve the 5th degree in the Temple of Set is MAGA. The whole Make America Great Again.
Well, isn't MAGA witch?
Yeah. Oh my God. This is the Snowden one that every time that you look this shit up, this is what you get. Even though it does have some good information. But it's a Snowden thing.
And it's Greenwald again.
Yeah, it's some slides. And it just kept coming up. And it's like, yeah, it does have some relevant points, but, you know, it still is slapping me in the face like this is, you know, a diverging just to get you off of, you know, you can't get to the articles you want to get to because the first 30 pages is all about Snowden and this shit right here. Which you wouldn't think that the British intelligence would be so involved, but apparently they are. Because I was more on the Taupiot side of things. Because I don't know. I just don't take British people as like very threatening. But I guess they could be.
Have you noticed how like recently it's all about being patriotic and the words patriots and the word red pill, or the phrase, it's two words, but the phrase red pill, patriotism. So being a patriot is domestic terrorism. The FBI is correlating the two, patriotism and domestic terrorism. So I started watching this Showtime show that was a sequel to a show that was pretty good, and it was all about Waco. And so the Waco show, Michael Shannon plays the FBI negotiator, and the first show was pretty good. It came out in like 2018. Then the one that, and it's still going right now, and they brought it back for the 30-year anniversary because 2023. It's Waco the Aftermath, and so it's got all of these sub stories going on with the trial of the state against the survivors of Waco, the siege, the ones that didn't die in there. And at the same time, it's showing the story of David Koresh kind of taking power. So it jumps back in time a little bit, him like getting control of Mount Carmel. But the one that is baffling to me, because I thought the first show was really good and they didn't make the ATF and the FBI look like heroes at all. And this one, though, it's showing like McVeigh, Timothy McVeigh is starting his thing. And the word patriot comes up over and over and over. There's even a scene where he writes a letter to the people, the lawyers defending the survivors of the Waco siege. And he said, "Thank you for being true patriots," signed Timothy McVeigh. And it's just like, holy shit.
But to make it so bad, isn't that what they fucking teach you in school? Oh, you got to stand up and you got to salute your flag. And,
I grew up in a time where we still did the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in school. And I thought it was fucking retarded, to tell you the truth. But now that's like a sign of activism.
my kid,
Salute your flag. What's that?
Won't do it. My kid won't do it.
Because you're ex-military?
I don't know. She just said, I think it's stupid. I don't do it. So they told me just be quiet. She's like, whatever.
Did you ever instill that into her?
No.
Like, how do you feel about it? Like the flag is a symbol. What do you think?
I think it's like one of those. Yeah, it's like a fucking flashing the butterfly. It's like one of them trigger things. It's like, oh, it's ingrained in your fucking head. As soon as you see it,
you don't tear up when you hear the Star Spangled Banner?
No, because I know that fucker was no.
Okay,
no,
cool.
No.
Well, let's get back on track. I'm sorry, I keep doing this. Yeah, where were we on the psychology thing? Like the it's the Glenn Greenwald one, right? The second one.
Oh yeah, the Intercept one.
Because you said you were starting to say it was just more Snowden, really.
It is, because it's exactly, it goes back to the Snowden, because it says how covert agents infiltrate the internet and to manipulate, deceive, and destroy reputations. And it comes from the Snowden archive. And it goes into these slides of what the art of deception training for online covert operations is. So, the disruption, which we see that like fucking daily, disrupt everybody, to have everybody running in all the different directions so that you kind of like that mind wars, info wars, it's like information overload. So you are like overloaded with all the information that comes from that disruption. So you're kind of disoriented. And the best way for you to get reoriented is for them to swoop in and be like, "Hey, breaking news, we got, a whistleblower," or some bullshit like that.
And then you can buy a bottle of vitamin D for $50.
But, it's organic. Organic vitamin D. But
just a little chunk of sun in a pill capsule.
But it'll give you cancer if you go outside in it, so you need your sunscreen. It's like somebody's lying somewhere in that loop. But then it goes into like how you discredit your targets by setting up the honey traps, which to me that seems like on a bigger scale. Even though I guess on a smaller scale, I mean, it would be pretty easy to set up honey traps for, smaller podcasts. I mean, that could be very easy. But, there's also like different types of honey traps. It's not even like, oh, there's some girl and she, wants to fuck you and you're going to fall for it. And so she gets all the information. I mean,
I do think that's where people's minds go when they hear the honey trap, but it could be.
It's whatever. Like, oh, we know that this is where you want to be. Like, oh, you want 1 million followers. I'm going to float that above your head. You can get it. You know how you can get it? This is how. We're going to come up with a game plan. Just work this plan. It goes into, writing the blog, how you said with Assange, how they set him up. And you're like, oh, you did all this and that. Emailing. Like, some people do that. But, I think this is what it is. Like the whole Snowden thing was mainly to make you look at how they do the larger picture of things. So you're still not looking at what they called those nano influencers or the smaller groups.
Well, and also I think an aspect of the Snowden thing could be that they want you to be afraid that you're being watched every second of the day, no matter what you do online. I think they really want you to think that, so that if there is some like grassroots activism, that you will be deterred because everything you're doing online is visible, which I think is true.
Yeah.
But do they really watch everybody all the time?
No, it's too many. It's too
exactly.
much.
I mean, I think they have the capacity. I think everything we do does go into a database to a degree. And if we do get on their radar, then they have the ability to dig into what we've been doing.
Right. And I mean, back to just like the key phrases that is being used or the terminology that you use, or it could be just somebody that you come in contact with that is on their radar. Then now you're on their radar due to association. I think more of it has to do with, so just like you said about how they're making the patriot a weaponized word, the red pill a weaponized word. I mean, they're throwing those out there because they know what communities use them, but we kind of wouldn't have those phrases had they not been introduced. Those words didn't come out of our community. Those words came out of theirs. They instilled that whole patriotism in you as a child. They're like, no, you have to be proud of the country you come from and you must defend it, because that's how they get their military, is because if you weren't the country, you wouldn't go into the military.
But I've never seen it weaponized, like even during the George W. Bush administration.
No.
It wasn't until Trump came in that you were a fucking patriot if you were on this side. This is
right.
Trump's a fucking patriot. I love that.
Somewhere to somebody, just
okay.
Not us. I mean, though these 4D thing, I do see that does happen. This mainly happens like when you try to call some of these lower people out, that whole deny, disrupt, degrade, and deceive. I mean, yeah, I think some of them do use that, but I think it's also, kind of your second nature. I mean, if you're going to be caught lying and you don't want to lose your followers, you're going to fucking deny it. And then, you're going to try to degrade the person who brought the accusations against you. It kind of is like a broad overlay. They're like, we're going to put this out there and we're going to let you know it's being done, but we're not going to let you know it's being done to you on that level. We're going to let you think that it's, this big old overall, like how Snowden was. No, it's just, if you're a double agent, if you're doing true terrorist crimes, not somebody who popped up on YouTube and, is promoting their damn Patreon on the side. So I think that, that kind of makes you feel like it wouldn't happen. Even though they're putting it out there, telling you it's happened, but they're framing it in a way that you don't have your guard up. But if you look through the slides, I mean, period, the propaganda, branding, marketing, we see that on a very lower level. I think that's exactly how, I think the appeal of it is if you go into these small people, besides the fact that nobody's going to suspect it, you can also wave that above their heads that, hey, we can get you the money that you want. We can get you maybe in here. We can get you your name in society if that's what you want. If, you just barter with us some. But what I do like is they also put in that NLP in here, the mirroring, the accommodation, the mimicry stuff, because that is kind of how you influence people, is with these little key things right here, like adjustment of speech patterns. I think that's another thing you need to look out, or you start to notice, is people will pick up different terminology and start using that terminology where they normally hadn't before. And so you start exploring this new terminology and phrasing, because I think that's like an earmark that you're being introduced to this new element, which can be, like this new hallway, like come down this hallway. This is something new, which is really just a distraction.
And once again, I just want to remind listeners / viewers that this thread is in the show notes, just so that following along would be, I mean, if we could do the screenshot thing and go through it, but I think we bounced around so much that would be almost it's easier to do it this way. You guys can just look it up. Listening to Brandy talk is enough, but there's so much good stuff in this thread too. And it could get you spiraling down your own rabbit holes on the side too, stuff that she's mentioned. You could make your own connections too. I know that I thought of a lot of things that I've noticed lately when I was reading this thread. And I'm sure if any of you, the fact that you're listening to this fucking show tells me that you have done some research, and you probably listened to people that you've noticed certain things about, maybe even people that you used to think were on the level. And we're not here to call out names. I mean, we have obviously talked about some of the bigger ones.
Yeah, it's more just trying to get people to look at where you're getting your information from, who you're paying at that. I mean,
okay, good. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I want to get your opinion on this, because we run in circles that are the same, and it's a really big thing right now. There's a huge schism in the community about whether it's okay to put stuff behind a paywall, when it is okay to get paid. Is it ever okay to get paid? Are you a shill if you're getting paid to do your podcast? And then there's levels to that. Are you putting half of your show behind a paywall? You listen to 1 hour. That's the Greg Carlwood model from Higher Side Chats. He did that for years. I think he's actually going with advertisers now. Are you a shill if you get advertisers? Is it okay to have a Patreon? Is it okay to have a Buy Me a Coffee or a Cash App? All that stuff. And where I fall on it is, this is my personal, with my show, I will never sell a product. I did have a guy on very recently. It might be the episode right before this, actually, where it was a guy and he was actually attached to the Stu Peters. Suddenly. Oh, no. So he works with him, and he actually did plug a product. It was deer antler velvet, and he has all sorts of stuff. But the information that he gave me, I did check out, and I thought it was legit. So I let him plug his product. I didn't cut that part out. I didn't get any money for that. He did use my name as a coupon code for that episode so that you could get a deal if you listened to it there. But aside from letting people sometimes put a product and plug a product up, I will never get paid from an advertiser. That's just my feelings. I've always been grossed out by ads. I listen to several podcasts. I love certain people's shows that actually do have commercials right in the middle of their episodes. I don't want to do that. I'm not against making money doing this, though. And I don't think that if you do make money doing it, some people sell merch. Other people just ask for donations. You don't have to pay for it. So where do you stand on all this? That was a big lead up. Do you think that when you have information you want people to know about, do you think it's wrong to charge them to hear it or to get paid in any form?
To me, it gets to a certain point. It's like you're in your house, I'm in my bedroom. We're not having to get extra overpriced space or equipment to do what it is that we're doing right here. Now, if it grew a lot and you're finding that you're having to upgrade some stuff that may be a little bit out of your normal price range, like normally people use a laptop, whether it's for this or just for personal use. But if you're having to get a specific type of machine, a specific type of audio, and then you can't do it in your house anymore, so you might have to rent a space. I think when it gets to that certain point and especially if you're just going straight career, you've reached that point where it's just straight career and you can't manage to have a job and this at the same time. I think at that point you have to assess that situation. Like, okay, I can't reasonably afford this unless I get some type of assistance. So I can see that. I can see doing that at that point. If you're just going around saying, well, I want to quit my job and do this. Okay. You're quitting your job. You made that decision. So to just all of a sudden say, well, I'm going to quit my job because this is what I want to do and I think that you should pay me. Okay, that's a risk. Because some people might be like, I'm not paying you for that just because you want to quit your job. I mean, so people really have to think about that. Are you doing what it is you say you're doing when you're putting this stuff behind a paywall? Because now that somebody is paying you, then you are held to a certain standard. Are you honestly giving what it is that they're paying for? And that is where it comes into question. I don't think it's so much as you're just like shilling out. I mean, there are some people just like, they just do it all. I mean, you got like 10 minutes of show and 45 minutes of their merchandise and who they're propping up, and even propping up other people's merchandise. If you're in this truther community and you're supposedly giving out this truth and this information and people are paying for that, are you being honest with those people? Are you disclosing stuff to them so that they know where that money is going? And I think that's the issue, is when you are going to try to use that trap of they're paying for entertainment, so I don't have to exactly be honest with them because I need the following. So I'm going to go on these certain people's shows, even though I personally don't align or believe in any of it, but because it'll get the clicks, but because I will be able to get more people paying me for it, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to put on this different persona and I'm going to chameleon myself into that community so that I can take some of their followers over to me so that I can make some more money. Like, that is an issue for you to I mean, you can call it being two-faced, but it's just being fake, and it's not being real, and it's not being true to the people who are paying you for what it is that you are supposedly advertising yourself as. You are changing your story. You are embellishing it. That's a problem too. You're over exaggerating details, or you're telling the same story, but you add in and omit things depending on who it is you talk to, because you know that's what their audience likes. That's not real. That's fake. You're being fake. You're being untrue. You're not being honest at all. That is like lies of omission, even. You're going to tell half the truth, but you're not going to tell the other half. And that is another thing with, being infiltrated at that. Or, if you're getting fed information and it's not you doing the research, are you telling your audience, I'm getting this information from an intel source and it's not my information? So you're just listening to me tell you something that may or may not be true? Are you telling them that you are going off of this person's information or this agency's information, and you're going to follow and lead them down that narrative? Are you telling them that this is what you're going to do? That is a problem. If you are not being open and honest, and you're portraying yourself as being an open and honest person, but you're having them pay for you to lead them in the direction that this agency is having you lead them down. Just, are you promoting ideas that aren't your own? I have seen where certain people will be like, they will post some of their notes and be like, oh my God, these are my notes. This is my notes. Well, when you do that, people are going to assume that those are your notes, that you came up with those ideas that are on this piece of paper. But in fact, it's not your notes. You've copied them word for word from a paper that has been published online. That's plagiarism. But you omitted all of that. You just put it out there and let them assume on their own. And why would you do that? Why wouldn't you put the link and be like, hey, if you want to read this paper because my handwriting is shitty, here's the link? Because otherwise it's plagiarism. But you're leading them and making them think or giving them an impression that is untrue. That is a problem. How are you going to charge these people knowing good and well you're not being fully honest in every sense of the way? That is a problem. And I think that is where we're at, is we are having a lot of people that are getting paid to disguise themselves up as a truth movement when they are really just an actor.
So, as far as like the term useful idiot goes,
Ugh.
do you think there's more of what you're talking about, or where people are just going down a certain path and they can be misled easily and kind of just infiltrated without them even knowing it?
Then,
because there's a story about Bill Cooper, who I think was if we were going to use the word truther, or like an authentic conspiracy theorist. A large chunk of his Behold the Pale Horse book, I think it's that one. Read it years ago. I need to read it again. I just got a copy. It's probably got the good stuff cut out of it. But he later on in his life admitted that he was duped by the UFO movement, and that he thinks that he was fed false information from some higher up. And so how often does that happen? I mean, is it more the case that people are just willing to sell out, or are sometimes people just like useful idiots?
Well, just like who did you even get your information from? That's where you have to look at it. I mean, because that's what makes no sense to me too about the UFO Twitter situation, is we all know that these groups purposely do the stuff that they're doing, but yet you turn around and look to them for honest information. Does that make sense? You've seen the track history of what they do. So you have to have some level of discernment to look to see if this stuff is really true, or to see, are they holding something? Is there an exchange? I'll give you this information, but I need you to do this. And usually, if it is an exchange like that, you're being used. And if you are being a useful idiot, at some point, they're going to approach you because they've given you so much. They're going to approach you for a give back. They're not just giving you stuff for free. You're going to have to reciprocate. You're going to have to give them something that they want back. And sometimes, I don't even think it's money. They don't come in like the actual advertised Zomad does. They don't say, I'm going to pay you. No, they're just going to give you certain tidbits of information. And yeah, some people are going to be like, oh, that's what I was thinking. Well, you know what? They're smarter than you. So if stuff just seems so coincidental and so synchronistic, maybe you should take a step back. Maybe you should give yourself a month, 2 months before you accept this offering, and you need to watch the offering. Where is the offering coming from? Is this the donut on the alligator's tongue? So as soon as you grab it, you're going to be bit. You need to look. But I think some people just overreact so quickly because they have that honey trap. They want the popularity. They want to do all the rounds. They want to be the next Joe Rogan. But did you ever take the time to figure out who Joe Rogan really is? All the stuff that he's connected to, the shit that has happened around him, is that what you want? Because he is not himself. He doesn't get to be himself all the time. He has sold a good portion of himself. If he acts out of line, they can come and take out his family. Is this what you want? Is that cool to you? You want to give up your life to lie to people like that? I mean, you really have to look at what it is that you want in your life and these priorities, and analyze the people that are supposedly giving you this information. You got to have more. I hate to say you got to have more common sense, but damn it, just have some fucking common sense.
Or just make sure, like you said earlier, that you do check the stuff out before you take it for gospel. Because if the people that you are listening to can find it, so can you. And
exactly.
There's a paper trail for most of this stuff. What's that?
Yeah. Why wouldn't they offer it up? There's a lot of people don't even give you where they got the source of the information from.
And a lot of this conspiracy theory stuff is a lot of speculation. So like with my show in particular, we take a lot of resources and a lot of other people's opinions, and then we kind of spitball off of that. But when I'm citing something as fact, you're going to be able to see a resource for it. And a resource isn't just an article where someone said it as an opinion, because a lot of times that is a person's source. I mean, I was talking to a guy the other day about this, and it was just like, yeah, a source, a lot of times a citation is like, I'm agreeing with something somebody said in a New York Times article in 1996. Therefore, it's true. But there are ways to validate certain things. And I think we can wrap up, really. I don't know if you want to tie up on anything with the thread. I think, like I said, it will be attached to this. I just want to close out on my end with a story about me, and then I'll let you close out too. But I think that for me, I grew up listening to the music of the Laurel Canyon scene and thought that was, alternative life, and it wasn't mainstream. Come to find out years later, no. I also, I loved Joe Rogan for a while. I'm not going to lie about that. I did like his podcast when it was like kind of on the fringe still, even though it never was. Hunter S. Thompson used to be a hero of mine. Loved that man's writing. Come to find out certain things about him. And the last one would be Noam Chomsky, because this is recent. I mean, that guy, as far as like my ideal foreign policy and like the atrocities that I think have been done in the name of the United States of America, he was a great source for all of that. And I think it just recently came up how heavy his Epstein connections really were. And he was a manufactured cunt sent to tell us the way things are. So it's like me as a 40-year-old man, I'm starting to look at where I got my information, the art that I liked to consume, and the things that shaped the way I think. None of it was authentic. None of it. But now that I know that, I can look at it for what it is. And I don't think I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater necessarily. I think there's still truth to be had. Like you said earlier, the more truth that they put in there to muddy the waters of like the lies, you know, we'll never know unless we do dive in. So yeah, why don't you just close out with some of your thoughts on this? And if you have anything else you want to tie up on the thread.
No, yeah, that's basically it. It's just, you can't, I think it was, like the Plato thing, how he had that, cult that they didn't question anything he said. They took everything that came out of his mouth as truth. And, they're even, in which I didn't realize I hated this phrase until it just stuck in my head, like Reagan with his, that truth, but, verify situation. It's like, that's ass backwards. You need to verify before you think anything is a truth. Don't trust and then verify it, because you've already given into it. That's, verifying is something you do before you believe it as truth or before you trust it. And most of the, when you're doing your research and everything, you're going to see how certain things tie into other things. And you're going to be able to see some type of trail go somewhere. And they purposely make it lengthy and they purposely make it exhausting so that you will give up somewhere along the way and just say, fuck it, this is my opinion, this is what I'm going off of. And that's just something that we're going to have to deal with. It's not bad to like still see some hope of good or influence that somebody's put in your life, because even though it was all fake and we were misled, it didn't make us into that population that they wanted it to go to. Instead, it put us on the backside of it. Like, we can appreciate this illusion for what it is. Like, it's an illusion, but it helped me create my thinking process. It helped me get better at researching. It helped me have the skepticism I needed to have, because I can't trust that everything I see is factual, actual, and real. So I think it was
Factual, actual, and real.
So they gave us a skill, and we were able to see and take advantage of that skill.
Well said. Brandy, thank you for coming on Conspiracy Playtime again. And I just looked to make sure if you missed her first episode, it's worth looking into. It's none of this at all. It's all about the ethereal, subconscious realms of meditation and dreams. A little bit of a departure from Conspiracy Playtime, but it was a really good episode. It's number 32. And there was some technical difficulties on it on my end, so you gotta like hear some echo and feedback every once in a while, but it's definitely worth checking out. I don't know, Brandy, you don't really have anything to plug, do you? Like, your Twitter is great. It's at Brandy Renee, right? Is there a underscore in there? Is that just all one word?
AKA _ Brandy.
AKA, I forgot that part. Well, we will, along with the thread, and I'm also gonna like all the articles that you had in your thread, I'm going to put all those in the show notes, and I'll put your Twitter in there. and anything else you want. I don't know. That's you. All right, Twitter and your threads. She's not selling nothing.
Not selling nothing.
All right. Well, until next time, conspiracy players, get laid in the shade. Have fun in the sun. I think I said that backwards.